The top stories tonight in Y News. Almost 20 million Filipinos lived in poverty in 2021 as the country continues to weather the COVID-19 pandemic.
Lawmakers asked for a full-blown investigation on the unauthorized sugar importation in the country.
The Department of Health will stop making new COVID-19 vaccine order until the end of the year following millions of expired vaccines.
The U.S. faces massive worker shortages, particularly among young workers.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Monday, August 15, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am Harleen Delgado.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news. The Philippine government failed to reach the more than 15 to 17% poverty incidence target it set for 2021. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, nearly 20 million Filipinos were classified as poor in the previous year. Meanwhile, one of the government's initiatives to lower the nation's poverty rate is to fully reopen our economy. Dante Almento has the story.
The country's poverty incidence was reported to be 18.1% in 2021 by the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA. It translates to 19.99 million Filipinos who are considered to be poor. This is greater than the increase of poverty in 2018 of 16.7% or 17.67 million Filipinos. Additionally, there were more poor families.
Ang bilang ng mahihirap na pamilya noong 2021 ay nasa 3.5 million. Tumaas ito kung ikukumpara noong 2018 na nasa 3 million na mahihirap na pamilya.
Poverty incidence, according to PSA, is the proportion of Filipinos whose per capita income cannot sufficiently meet the individual's basic food and non-food needs. The Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARM recorded the highest rate of poverty incidence by region at 37.2% and the National Capital Region had the lowest rate.
Ang subsistence incidence among families o ang bagdan ng pamilya ng kinikita ay di sapat upang matugunan ang kanilang basic food needs noong taon 2021 ay naitala sa 3.9%. Ito ay mas mataas kumpara sa naitala noong 2018 na nasa 3.4%.
Agusan del Sur, Basilan, Davao Occidental, Sarangani, Sulu, and Zamboanga del Norte, all of which are in the Mindanao region, were 6 provinces that were included in the poorest cluster. Meanwhile, the National Economic Development Authority or NEDA revealed that the pandemic has disrupted the development of the Filipino people as well as the growth of the country. However, NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan promises that the current administration would concentrate on 3 initiatives to lower poverty incidence. These include the full reopening of the economy, investment in human capital, social development and protection, and the production sector's transformation.
We need to fully reopen the economy to steer the country back on the high growth path. As indicated by the President during his first State of the Nation address, there will be no more lockdowns.
The government will also modernize the agribusiness or agriculture sector.
We want to see competitive products being produced in the Philippines, both for Philippine and international markets. Government will contribute to this transformation by easing the cost of doing business, including energy and transport.
The government would make use of TESDA and the Labor Department, among other organizations, to improve Filipino workers' skills and help them land better jobs. The administration of Marcos would encourage trade and draw investors. By 2028, the Marcos' administration intends to drop the country's poverty incidence to 9%. Dante Almento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
There is no shortage of sugar in the Philippines, according to the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food. The group expects that a rise in local production will drop prices as well. Ray Pelayo reports why.
When compared to locally produced and actual demand, data from Sugar Regulatory Administration provided by the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated from September 2021 to July 2022 revealed that there were still 171,000 metric tons of refined sugar and between 140 to 240,000 metric tons of raw sugar. There's no need to import at this time, according to PCAFI President Danilo Faustino, and they cannot permit any imports that would harm local producers.
So I would say there's really, because of the news, so traders or the middlemen took advantage of this and made it appear that there will be no sugar coming in.
Faustino expected sugar prices to decline in the months after the start of local production.
Nag-aapura na yan. So if they will start the production by next week, or palagay ko some of them already started, to catch the high price of sugar. And then once unahan na yan, then prices will have to go down inevitably kasi mapa-flood na ng local supply ang market.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has stated that it is not appropriate to import sugar at this time, but he sees a potential for importation of sugar in October.
So bago tayo mag-import ng panibagong asukal, dapat sabi ko, ubusin na muna natin ang supply dito. Maaari, bandang Oktubre, baka yung supply na nandito sa Pilipinas ay paubos na. Baka sakali ay kailangan natin mag-import. Pero kakaunti lang. Hindi kasing dami ng kanilang sinasabi dati na 300,000 tons. Siguro malaki na yung 150,000 tons para sa buong taon na ito.
CAFI mentioned that supporting the plantation could improve the local sugar production. The group said the nation used to export sugar in the 1950s and 1960s. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Around the issue of the illegal approval of the sugar importation order, lawmakers in the lower chamber of Congress urged other officials of the Sugar Regulatory Administration to resign. Lawmakers also asked that the briefing on the unauthorized sugar importation be turned into a full-blown investigation. Eileen Cerudo reports why.
Negros Occidental Representative Juliet Ferrer, ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro, and other lawmakers call on the other signatories of the Sugar Order Number 4 to resign.
Yung mga hindi pa po nag-resign, bakit hindi po sila mag-resign as a matter of delicadeza?
The said order approved the importation of 300,000 metric tons of sugar, which President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. denied to have approved. Attorney Roland Beltran, one of the members of the Sugar Regulatory Board, resigned earlier today.
Former Sugar Regulatory Administration Chairman and Department of Agriculture Undersecretary Leocadio Sebastian previously resigned amid the importation issue.
The former official said he signed a sugar order to address the possible diminishing sugar supply in the country.
I signed the document based on the data presented to me, based on the data presented by the Sugar Regulatory Administration. I cannot stand watching Filipinos suffer from high local prices of sugar that are hurting Filipino consumers. However, I immediately resigned when I knew the President disapproved my action.
A joint motu proprio inquiry on the illegal sugar importation order will be conducted by the House Committees on Good Government and Public Accountability and the Committee on Agriculture and Food in support of legal action. This development came after the panels approved House Minority Leader Marcelino Libanan's motion to convert the briefing into a full-blown congressional probe to determine culpability on the controversial issuance of the resolution without the approval of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Meanwhile, Senator Miguel Zubiri calls for the Senate to also conduct an investigation on the illegal importation order.
The unauthorized release of sugar order number 4 is absolutely reprehensible and must be investigated, including us here in the Senate. We should look into this.
He also called for the resignation of the involved SRA officials. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Bangsamoro Transition Authority, or BTA, will no longer receive a term extension from President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Nel Maribohok will tell us why.
The first election to the 80-member Bangsamoro Parliament will be held in May 2025. According to Presidential Advisor on Peace, Reconciliation and Unity Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. will no longer give a term extension to the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, and it is expected that the drafting of laws and codes for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARM, will be quickly completed.
Sinasabi nga po na niya na sa susunod na taon na 2025 ay wala na pong extension at magkakaroon po ng election. So ang kanya pong mensahe sa ating mga BPA members, including kay Chief Minister, ay talagang mag-double time po sila, dahil kasi sinabi nga niya na itong 3-year extension ay ito po napaka-exit para at least mapabuti po nila at magawa po nila yung mga fundamental laws at saka legislation.
Last Friday, President Marcos Jr. officiated at the mass oath-taking of the BTA's new members. The Moro Islamic Liberation Front dominates the new BTA composition with 41 nominees and 39 from the government. PBBM support will help the peace talks in Mindanao, says Secretary Galvez.
Ang kanya pong pagka-decisive to really implement yung ating obligations with the Bangsamoro. Yun po ay nagpalaki ng ating tinatawag na kumpiyansa, lalong-lalo na sa ating mga kapatid na mga Muslim.
The BTA was supposed to have ended its institutional life on June 30, but Congress extended it to 2025 by delaying the regional elections that were scheduled last May to allow time for transition measures to be completed. Nel Maribohok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Philippine National Police Chief General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. defended his decision to reassign more than 80 PNP senior officers, including the command group. According to Azurin, this is not the first time the Chief PNP has implemented a revamp in a third-level position inside the National Police. Leia Ilagan reports.
Philippine National Police Chief Police General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. refers to the significant restructuring he carried out on August 8 as career growth for senior PNP officers, including the top 3 positions in the organization. Azurin stated that in order to assist the PNP in the fight against insurgency, he must transfer the number 2 in command Police Lieutenant General Rodel Sermonia to Area Police Command Visayas.
General Sermonia is well known as a good organizer, as a good advocate in organizing and mobilizing the community. And nakikita naman natin on record kung saan isa-isa pinapatay ang ating pulis sa Samar. And karamihan nun ay yung latest nga si Patrolman Mongi, di ba? So I think we need somebody there to organize and bring awareness to all the different barangays in the Visayas region na pagtulong-tulungan natin itong problema natin sa insurgency. So yun yung reason, that's why I requested na mag-move siya.
Azurin also explains that Danao will support the organization in his current assignment as Commander of Area Police Command Western Mindanao.
On the part of BIC naman, I told them na we have problems right now because of the implementation nga nung BARM, di ba, yung mga provisions doon. Unti-unti, last Friday nag-take out na nga yung members ng parliament. So we need yung mga ganun na mga competency and expertise ng ating mga kasamahan dito.
Additionally, Azurin stated that he will speak with an APOLCOM to iron out any differences about the implementation of the reshuffle.
That we have to iron out yung differences namin ng NAPOLCOM, and I respect that particular NAPOLCOM Memorandum Circular. But historically kasi, ito is, I'm talking about history.
Azurin implemented major reshuffle for more than 80 police officers, mostly from the third-level position, last August 8. The NAPOLCOM issued a resolution reminding the PNP to abide by the current rules, including submitting the list of third-level officials before they are given any positions. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
More than 10 million job openings will still be unfilled in the United States of America in June 2022, while 6 million Americans will still be looking for employment. Beverly Saison will tell us why.
Employers in the United States of America have difficulties finding enough workers for their vacancies. This is despite their efforts to boost hiring, especially for salespeople, food servers, and postal workers. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which represents American companies, there are a lot of jobs but not enough workers. Some of the reasons for worker shortage include the pandemic, early retirement, and strict immigration laws. The baby boomers have begun leaving the labor market, and the pace of immigration is not at the same rate to replace it. Many who stopped working in early 2020 as COVID-19 first ravaged the U.S. economy never returned. Some women choose to stay home to care for children as shortages also hit the daycare sector as well. Many employers boosted pay and benefits to lure workers back. The 22 million jobs lost due to COVID-19 have returned, and unemployment rate is as historically low at 3.5%. The labor shortage is expected to ease a bit as Federal Reserve continues to raise interest rates to combat inflation. Beverly Saison, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Pfizer, in collaboration with a French vaccine company, declared the beginning of a phase 3 trial of its vaccine candidate against Lyme disease. Ruth Bahe will tell us the details live. Ruth?
Elsie, good evening. Around 6,000 participants aged 5 and older are needed for the phase 3 trial of vaccine against Lyme for outdoor recreationists, or VALOR, which is being conducted in areas of the U.S. 50 sites areas in the U.S. and Europe where Lyme disease is highly endemic. Participants will get a protein-based vaccine called VLA15 in 3 doses throughout a 5 to 9 month period, followed by 1 booster shot or placebo shot 12 months later. Lyme disease caused by bacteria transmitted when an infected tick bites humans is the most common animal-borne illness in the United States, and it has been growing and becoming common in areas relatively caused by climate change. Elsie, if the vaccine trial is successful, Pfizer intends to submit an application for approval to the European Medicines Agency and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration in 2025. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Ruth Bahe, for that live report.
The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, expects heavy traffic to be lighter starting Thursday. This amid expansion of number coding effective today. Ashur Kadapan Jr. details why live. Yes, Ashur, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Will. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority plans to stringently implement the expanded number coding scheme starting Thursday. This as the agency conducts a 3-day public awareness drive for the implementation of the traffic scheme, which also takes effect not only from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., but also from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. effective today. This is being implemented in all major thoroughfares in Metro Manila except on weekends and holidays. In the meantime, the MMDA only warns the violators and expects the traffic volume to reduce once the authorities start issuing citation tickets. The MMDA anticipates about 20% reduction in the traffic volume starting Thursday.
For
first day of implementation and no apprehension pa kami. Kumbaga, hindi pa nanguhuli. Alam mo naman ang mga tao, pagka walang ticket na katapat, lalabas at lalabas pa rin yan.
On the first day of the implementation of the expanded number coding, more than 1,500 motorists were apprehended, where majority were caught along EDSA. MMDA officer in charge, legal director for Attorney Crisanto Saruca, says most of them explained that they are unaware of the traffic scheme now being implemented in the morning.
Ang nagiging dahilan po ng mga na-apprehend sa araw na ito ay sinasabi hindi pa po nila alam. So which is why ini-implement nga po ng MMDA yung public awareness po muna para alam po ng ating mga motorista na meron na pong number coding sa umaga 7 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Will the MMDA are expected to release traffic volume count and vehicle speed tomorrow to know the effect of the implementation of the number coding scheme. Will?
Yes, thank you. Ashur Kadapan, live reporting from Quezon City.
The country will not procure additional COVID-19 vaccines for the meantime, following millions of unused doses. This report will tell us why. The Department of Health, or DOH, says the country will stop making new orders of COVID-19 vaccines until the end of the year. In the organizational meeting of the Senate Committee on Health, Health Officer in Charge Maria Rosario Vergara says the Philippines has 8.42% COVID-19 vaccine wastage, which is within the 10% acceptable limit of the COVAX facility. This accounts for over 20 million doses of wasted vaccines. Senator Risa Hontiveros estimates more than 10 billion pesos of wasted funds as a result of the unused COVID-19 vaccines.
At this rate, Mr. Chair, by October, lalabas na tayo sa threshold ng WHO na acceptable vaccine wastage limit ng 10%. So we might have accumulated vaccines faster than we could administer them. E nakapanghihinayang na parang patapon ang paggasta ng bilyong piso para dito.
Vergara says 6% of among those donated got expired, while 22% of those procured of local government units and 40% of privately procured vaccines were also wasted. The health official says the COVAX facility agreed to replace all the unused vaccines, may it be government or privately procured or part of donations. The replacements are expected to be delivered by the end of the year.
We will be consuming all of these existing stocks by December, and our schedule for the COVAX deliveries or replacements would start December also, so that we can have appropriate and adequate stocks by the first quarter of 2023.
The health department adds efforts to improve the country's booster vaccination are ongoing as the government targets to inoculate at least 50% of the eligible population by October. To date, over 92% of the adult population are now fully vaccinated, but booster vaccination remains low at only 21%. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
A decline in the COVID-19 growth rate and positivity rate in the National Capital Region was seen by the Octa Research Group. The group says it is possible that the COVID-19 infections in Metro Manila have reached a peak. JP Nunez reports why.
The Octa Research reported that the COVID-19 case growth rate in Metro Manila decreased to a negative 1% level over a week. The percentage falls from 9% last week. According to Professor Guido David of Octa Research, the decline in growth rate might signal the beginning of a downward trend. The Octa made it clear that despite the decrease, the number of COVID-19 cases is still high and poses a continuing threat. Thus, the general public is urged to exercise caution.
Hindi naman ibig sabihin pababa na yung cases, pero at negative 1% growth rate, it could be the start. Itong 1% na yan, maliit lang naman yan. So may possibility na parang flat siya ngayon. Baka nag-peak siya.
Prior to this, the Octa Research also reported a decline in the positivity rate in the NCR from 17.5 last August 6 to 16.4 last August 12, which suggests that COVID-19 wave may have peaked. The research group is unable to predict at this time if these numbers will continue in a downward trend. They need another week of data observation before they can conclude.
Hindi natin talaga masabi. Kaya nga usually pag ganitong situation na nakita natin possibly nag-peak na, maganda hintayin natin yung trends over the next 1 to 2 weeks para makita natin kung tuloy-tuloy na siya.
Meanwhile, Octa Research concurs with the Department of Health's earlier statement about the gradual relaxation of restrictions, including the lifting of the mask mandate, limiting physical distance traveled, and changing the quarantine protocol. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Education, or DepEd, has requested that the Commission on Audit launch a fraud investigation into the purchase of laptop computers for teachers by the Department of Budget and Management's Procurement Service. Janice and Henta will tell us why.
The Department of Education already requested a fraud audit from the Commission on Audit to investigate the allegedly irregular purchases of expensive and outdated laptops for public school teachers. According to DepEd Undersecretary Epimako Densing, Vice President Education Secretary Sara Duterte gave them a go signal.
Ang ibinabantayan po natin ngayon at tinitingnan po namin, it's not an official investigation yet, and this is the reason why we are asking COA to do a fraud audit, is the reason why it was downgraded from 1.9 gigahertz to 1.8 gigahertz, and at the same time tumaas din yung presyo. And why is it Intel Celeron? Because we were very specific in the specifications of the laptop. So itong mga areang ito ang gusto naming iklaro, gusto naming tingnan, at ayaw namin maghusga muna ngayon.
Densing added that until PSDBM filed an answer to the allegations, the agency could not figure out if the laptops purchased had an anomaly. The department had previously stated that it coordinated with PSDBM for documents to respond to COA.
Hindi namin madedeklara kaagad as of today na nagkaroon ng anomalya ba dyan. Hindi natin masasagot kaagad yan hanggat ito'y masagot ng PSDBM. Kasi ang isa sa pinaka-importanteng proseso ng pag-procure ay yung tinatawag nating market scanning. Ang ibig sabihin po nito, pag nagpo-procure ka bago bumili, kailangan po ang ahensya, in this case PSDBN, kailangan nagtatanong sa merkado kung magkano ba itong laptop na ito.
Additionally, Densing stated that the laptop purchase was not included in the 2021 budget because the funds came from the Bayanihan 2 law and the agency afterwards used DBMPS for the transaction. Janice and Hente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Shanghai, China has announced that all primary, middle, and high schools, kindergartens, and nurseries would reopen on September 1 following months of COVID-19 closures. According to the Shanghai Municipal Education Commission, the city will mandate that all instructors and students complete a daily COVID testing before leaving the campus. A 14-day self-health management within the city is to be conducted by teachers and students prior to the school reopening before the city's 2-month lockdown to combat its worst COVID outbreak in April and May. Shanghai closed all schools at the middle of March. The first very shipment of Ukraine grains to help ease famine in Ethiopia under the World Food Program has set sail. Marvin Delphine will give us the details live. Yes, Marvi?
LC, listed by the United Nations as one of the top 5 countries nearing starvation, Ethiopia will soon receive the first shipment of grains under the World Food Program. The shipment of Ukraine-grown grains weighed over 23,000 metric tons and left the port of Yuzhny in Ukraine yesterday aboard the United Nations charter ship. Its route is headed for the Eastern African country, Djibouti, where the grains will be unloaded first and moved to Ethiopia. The Black Sea grain delivery program was set back in the 22nd of July after both Ukraine and Russia were able to make a deal with Turkey after exportation was disrupted due to the invasion. That day, Denise Brown, the World Food Program coordinator in Ukraine, said it was a very positive day as everyone would come together to address the real issues of humanity. Meanwhile, the first shipment of Ukrainian corn reached the shores of Italy, Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announcing on Saturday that they are doing their best to reduce famine. Elsie?
Marvy, on the topic of Ukraine, what is it looking like on the front lines of the war?
Well, Elsie, concerns are growing as the shellings from both sides of Ukraine and Russia have threatened nuclear catastrophe as they hit Europe's largest nuclear plant in Zaporizhia, Ukraine. To investigate the scene, a Russian envoy has called for Ukraine to halt their shellings to provide security for those investigating. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Marvy Delphine, for that live report. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
Apart from the supply problem in the country, sugar is probably one of the most problematic ingredients in the modern diet and has been linked to serious diseases such as obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Lucky for you, healthy alternatives can add sweetness to your foods. Let's find out in Eileen Cerudo's report.
Stevia has been a common alternative for sugar, especially for individuals with diabetes. It is also called sweet leaf or candy leaf because of the sweetness of its leaves.
Ako kasi nakatikim na rin ako mismo ng dahon ng stevia, no, na talagang pag tinikman mo ay matamis talaga siya.
According to Natalie Polvinar, president of the Philippine Society of Nutritionists Dietitians Incorporated, stevia can be used as an alternative sweetener. She also said that the plant helps reduce blood sugar levels.
May component talaga yung halaman na nagbibigay tamis sa mga pagkain. Pwede natin itong ihalo sa inumin, na ating mga tinitimpla, at maaari din sa iba pang ating mga niluluto.
However, Pulvinar said that stevia is an expensive alternative, especially the manufactured one. However, individuals can grow stevia in pots outside their houses if they wish to try this sugar alternative. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. earlier announced that there might be a need to import more sugar supply to last the year.
Maaari, bandang Oktubre, baka yung supply na nandito sa Pilipinas ay paubos na. Baka sakali ay kailangan natin mag-import. Pero kakaunti lang. Hindi kasing dami ng kanilang sinasabi dati na 300,000 tons. Siguro malaki na yung 150,000 tons para sa buong taon na ito.
Aside from stevia, other alternative sweeteners are honey and fruits. There is also yacon, whose fruit is sweet enough to become a sweetener. However, Polvinar said further research is needed to find the best alternative for sugar.
Mas mainam kung there will be higher budget for research and development of other food items, which, for example, can contribute dito sa production ng alternative sugar, no? Para kung magkakaroon tayo ng shortage sa isang prime commodity, magkakaroon tayo ng kapalit na hindi naman magiging masyadong mahal.
Other alternatives are cocoa sugar and maple syrup. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Our Kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of Proverbs, chapter 9, verse 10, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding." are the reasons behind the news August 15, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Hardy Delgado.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.